Hi, I'm Scott Humphrey, CEO of the World Floor Covering Association, and this is Leadership Live. My staff came back to work this week for the first time since pre-COVID, where we're all in the office together, and it got me thinking about why we do what we do. What's the motivation behind our work, and how that plays into your attitude. How your attitude reflects how happy you are with what you do. Working where you are gifted and in a place where you are passionate about the outcome of the work really provides not only the best route to success, but also peace in the process. Attitude really matters more now than ever before, as we see so much of a challenge with customer service and people being understaffed and people simply doing the job. And it got me thinking again about why we do what we do. I began working at 7 years old in my dad's carpet mill. My middle brother Mike was 9. My older brother Louie was 11 at the time. Louie made $15, Mike made 10, and I made $5 a week. I can't tell you that my motivation was making good flooring products. I can tell you my motivation was pleasing my father. And so I began to think about that analogy coming back to work, and also what motivates you to do what you do as a leader. Is your motivation simply your salary? Is it acquiring something that you don't have? Is it peace in the job? Is it making an impact? Is it impacting the lives of those who look to your employment for their livelihood? There are a couple of stories that came to mind. The story of a young man who was out shooting basketball one day and he lost his contact lens. He looked for it, diligently looked for it, and could not find it. He went in and kind of dreaded telling his mother, but he did. He said, "Mom, I really looked, I couldn't find it." She said, "Wait here." She went outside, and in a few minutes she came back in with the contact lens. And he said, "But Mom, I looked for it. Why couldn't I find it?" She said, "Well, you were looking for a small piece of plastic, and I was looking for $150. It's all the motivation. What were they trying to see as they were trying to find that contact lens? You know, if you've heard me speak much, that Zig Ziglar is one of my favorite motivational speakers. I almost hate the term because he was a motivational leader. He actually lived it. He didn't simply tell stories, but those stories had outcomes that impacted lives. And one of my favorite stories deals with the railroad. And there's a story that happened back in the 1950s where Dave Anderson was working on a crew, and they were laying down some more track for the railroad. And as they're working out in this hot summer sun, one of the train cars comes up, and it's the caboose that carries the president of the railroad. He pulls off on a little side rail, and he walks out to the back, and he yells off the back area. He says, "Hey, Dave, is that you?" Dave Anderson looks up from the work crew, and he says, "Hey, Jim, yeah, it's me. How you doing?" And Jim Murphy said, "Well, come on up here and let's catch up." Well, the rest of the crew is sitting around amazed that Dave Anderson actually knows the president of the railroad, Jim Murphy. So after about an hour of them catching up and Dave getting some time in the air-conditioned caboose car, he comes back out, and the crew can't wait to hear the story behind this. They say, "Well, hey, Dave, how is it that you know Jim Murphy, the president of the railroad?" He said, "Well, we both started to work at the railroad on the same day. We became best of friends." And then they asked a question everybody was thinking, but nobody was really comfortable asking. Finally, one of the young guys said, "Well, how is it you're out here working on the work crew and Jim Murphy is the president of the railroad?" And Dave Anderson said without hesitation, "Well, that's because Jim Murphy came to work for the railroad and I came to work for $1.75 an hour." The motivation ultimately determined the outcome and the impact. I want to challenge you to look at your motivation. Make sure that your passion, your desires are aligned not only with the goal of success, but the impact that you have along the way. Your motivation will come through in your attitude and have a potentially positive impact on the lives of those who look to you for leadership. Take that lesson, apply it to your life, and go out there and lead.